The mirror screamed back at Ethan. Not with a voice, but with a sound that scraped inside his head, like glass breaking inside his ears. His reflection did not copy him anymore. It smiled when he did not. Its eyes were black, deep, and empty. Then the reflection lifted its hand and pushed against the glass from the inside. The mirror began to crack. Ethan stepped back, his heart pounding so hard it hurt. Behind him, the room smelled like rotten pumpkins. The lights flickered once, twice, and then went out. Something whispered his name from inside the mirror. Ethan! He turned to run, but the bedroom door slammed shut on its own. The mirror split down the middle with a loud snap, and a long, pale hand started to push through the broken glass. That was the moment Ethan realized the mirror was never showing him himself. It was showing what wanted to take his place. And just before the hand grabbed him, everything went black. 3 weeks earlier, none of this had started yet. Ethan Miller was a normal 12-year-old boy living in a quiet town in Illinois. He lived in a small house with his mom, his dad, and his little sister, Lily. Their street was calm. Kids rode bikes. Dogs barked. Nothing scary ever happened there. Ethan liked drawing cartoons and watching animated horror stories online. He loved spooky things, but only the kind that stayed on the screen. Real life was boring, and he liked it that way. October had just begun, and fall was everywhere. Leaves covered the sidewalks. The air was cold. Stores were full of candy and decorations. Pumpkins sat on porches, smiling with carved faces. One Saturday afternoon, Ethan's dad came home with a large box. "I found this at a garage sale," his dad said. "The old man was giving things away for cheap." "What is it?" Lily asked, peeking inside. Ethan leaned closer. Inside the box was a tall mirror with a thick wooden frame. The frame was dark and carved with strange shapes. Leaves, vines, and pumpkins. The pumpkins had twisted faces, not happy ones. Ethan felt a small chill, but he laughed it off. "It's creepy," he said. "Cool, though. We'll put it in your room," his mom said. "You needed a full mirror anyway." That night, Ethan watched as his dad leaned a mirror against the wall across from Ethan's bed. The mirror was taller than Ethan. When he stood in front of it, his reflection looked normal. Tired. Messy hair. Same old Ethan. But something felt off. When the lights were turned off and Ethan climbed into bed, the mirror caught the moonlight from the window. It reflected his room in soft silver light. Ethan turned over and tried to sleep. Then he heard a soft tap. 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 He opened his eyes and looked at the mirror. Nothing moved. "It's just the house," he whispered to himself. The next day, everything was normal. School was boring. Homework was annoying. Nothing strange happened. But that night, when Ethan brushed his teeth and walked back into his room, he stopped cold. His reflection was already standing in front of the mirror. Ethan was not. The reflection stared straight ahead, not blinking. Ethan slowly raised his hand. A second later, the reflection raised its hand too, but not at the same time. Ethan dropped his hand. "So what?" he muttered. "I'm just tired." He went to bed, facing away from the mirror this time. Over the next few days, small things began to change. Ethan would walk past the mirror and feel like someone was watching him. Sometimes, when he glanced back quickly, he thought his reflection was still moving. At school, Ethan told his best friend, Jake, about it. "Dude, you watch too many scary videos," Jake said. "It's just a mirror." "Yeah," Ethan said, but he didn't believe it. One night, Lily ran into Ethan's room crying. "The pumpkin talked to me," she said. "What pumpkin?" Ethan asked. "The one in your mirror," Lily whispered. Ethan laughed, but his stomach felt tight. "There's no pumpkin in my mirror." Lily shook her head. "It smiled at me. It said my name." Ethan walked Lily back to her room and tried to forget about it. But that night, when he stood in front of the mirror, he saw something new. Behind his reflection, sitting on the floor of the mirror world, was a carved pumpkin. Its eyes glowed faintly. Its mouth slowly stretched into a grin. Ethan spun around. There was nothing behind him. When he looked back at the mirror, the pumpkin was gone. Ethan did not sleep that night. The next morning, his mom noticed he looked tired. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Ethan lied. That afternoon, Ethan stayed home alone while his parents went out. Lily was at a friend's house. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Ethan sat on his bed, staring at the mirror. "I know you're not normal," he said quietly. His reflection stared back. Then it smiled. Ethan did not. "Stop," Ethan said, stepping back. The reflection lifted its hand and waved. The room grew colder. The mirror fogged up, and words slowly appeared, written from the inside. "Let me out." Ethan ran for the door, but it wouldn't open. The house creaked. The smell of rotten pumpkins filled the air again. From inside the mirror, the carved pumpkin reappeared. This time, it was closer. Bigger. Its mouth opened. And it laughed. The mirror began to shake. A crack formed down the center of the glass. Ethan screamed as the reflection pressed its face against the breaking mirror, its eyes now empty and dark. The glass split wider. A pale hand pushed through. And just as it grabbed Ethan's arm, the mirror shattered, sending glass and shadows exploding into the room. The glass hit the floor like falling ice. Ethan fell backward, his arm burning where the hand had grabbed him. Shards of the mirror were everywhere, on the bed, on the floor, even stuck in the wall. The room was silent except for Ethan's heavy breathing. Then the smell of rotten pumpkins faded. The cold faded. The shadows slid back into the corners. The mirror was gone. Only broken glass remained. Ethan scrambled to his feet and ran out of his room, screaming for his parents. He didn't stop until he was downstairs, shaking and crying. When his parents rushed in, they found him sitting on the kitchen floor, hugging his knees. "The mirror!" Ethan cried. "It broke. Something came out of it." They ran upstairs. His room was a mess, but there was no shadow. No hand. No pumpkin. Just broken glass. His dad frowned. "You probably had a nightmare." "I was awake!" Ethan yelled. "It touched me." His mom looked worried but calm. "We'll clean this up. Mirrors can play tricks on your eyes, especially at night." They cleaned the room and threw the glass away in thick black bags. By morning, the wall was empty where the mirror once stood. Ethan didn't feel safe. At school, he could not focus. Every shiny surface made his heart jump. Windows. Lockers. Even the screen of his phone. Jake noticed. "You look like you saw a ghost," Jake said. Ethan almost laughed. That afternoon, Lily came home quiet. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked her. She nodded, but her eyes stayed on the hallway. "Do you still hear it?" Ethan asked softly. Lily whispered, "It's mad now." That night, Ethan slept with the light on. At exactly 3:17 a.m., he woke up. He didn't know why. The room felt wrong. Cold. He sat up slowly. On the wall where the mirror used to be, something shiny reflected the light. A thin line. Glass. Crack. A reflection formed in the air, like the mirror was rebuilding itself from nothing. Piece by piece, the mirror came back, smoother than before, darker than before. Ethan froze. His reflection appeared. It was smiling. "You broke the door," the reflection said. "That made it worse." Ethan shook his head. "You're not real." The reflection tilted its head. "Neither are pumpkins until you carve them." Behind the reflection, the pumpkin rolled forward, its carved face glowing. Ethan screamed. The house lights snapped on. The mirror vanished. His parents rushed in again. This time, they believed him. The next day, they called someone. A woman named Mrs. Turner came to the house. She was old, with gray hair and tired eyes. She didn't smile much. She walked straight into Ethan's room. "It followed the mirror," she said. But the mirror was never the source. Ethan swallowed. Then what is? Mrs. Turner looked at him. The reflection wants to live. She explained slowly, using simple words. Some reflections are not empty. Some learn. Some wait. Mirrors are doors, and once a reflection is seen enough, it starts to believe it should be real. And the pumpkin? Lily asked. Mrs. Turner frowned. That's how it wears fear. Children's fear. Stories. Faces carved into things that should not smile. Mrs. Turner gave Ethan one rule. Never look into a mirror alone again. That night, Ethan and Lily slept in the living room with their parents. Nothing happened. The next day felt normal. Too normal. Ethan almost started to believe it was over. Until October 31st arrived. Halloween. Pumpkins lined the street. Kids laughed. Costumes filled the night. Ethan tried to enjoy it. But every carved pumpkin seemed to watch him. When he passed one house, all the pumpkins turned their faces toward him. Their mouths stretched wider. Ethan ran home. That night, at exactly midnight, every mirror in the house turned black. And from each one, the reflections stepped forward. The reflections filled the living room. Every mirror in the house became a doorway. Ethan could see himself in each one, but none of the images were normal. Every reflection was darker, thinner, taller. Some grinned with pumpkin mouths carved into shadows. Some had hollow eyes that seemed to move independently, darting around, watching everything. Ethan tried to speak. Stop! But the reflections didn't answer. They only stared, silent and patient. And then, one by one, they began stepping forward. Not through the glass, but through the floor, walls, and ceiling. The house groaned as if it were alive. His parents woke up screaming when one of the reflections reached for Ethan's mom, its long, pale fingers brushing her arm. She recoiled, shaking and sobbing. His dad grabbed her, trying to shield both of them. Run! Ethan shouted. But the reflections moved faster than the family could. They were everywhere. The air smelled like rotting pumpkins, and every breath felt sharp and cold. Ethan remembered what Mrs. Turner had told him. Reflections needed fear to survive, and if the story was finished, they lost power. He needed a plan. He grabbed his little sister's notebook, the one she used for school. He opened it and began to write names. His own first. Ethan Miller, he wrote, his hand shaking. Then Lily. Then his parents. Why? Lily screamed. What are you doing? The reflection. Ethan gasped. It wants to finish its story. If we finish it first, maybe it stops. They wrote fast, calling out each name aloud as they scribbled. The reflections hesitated, tilting their heads, unsure. The pumpkin shadows behind them pulsed angrily. Ethan looked around. The reflections began to retreat, backing into the glass as the family called out their own names repeatedly. Their voices echoed through the living room, strong and defiant. Then the worst happened. From the largest mirror, the original reflection stepped out. It was taller than Ethan, thin and grinning. Its pumpkin mouth stretched impossibly wide. Its eyes glowed faint blue, empty and cruel. Not done, it whispered, voice like glass breaking. Ethan's pen dropped. He tried to back away, but the reflection lunged. It moved faster than anything in the world. He barely ducked, and the thing slammed into the wall, splintering wood. Lily screamed as a shadow reached for her, dragging her toward the broken mirror. Ethan grabbed her hand and pulled, but his strength was nothing compared to the reflection's pull. Names! Ethan shouted. Say the names! They began chanting the names of every family member, louder and louder, hoping to finish the story before the reflection could take Lily. The pumpkin shadows behind the reflections twisted and writhed. Their faces grew grotesque, yet they recoiled when the names were spoken aloud. Each word seemed to weaken the monsters. The large reflection screeched and staggered, retreating a few steps. Ethan noticed the cracks in the mirrors spreading, blue light escaping from the fractures. He ran from one mirror to another, touching each crack and repeating the names he had written. Slowly, the reflections began to shrink back, dissolving into shards of glass and fading shadows. The largest reflection let out a final scream, louder than thunder, as its pumpkin mouth twisted in fury. It slammed backward into its mirror, cracking it completely, and then disappeared. The house went silent. Ethan sank to the floor, trembling, holding Lily tight. His parents collapsed beside them, exhausted but alive. When they looked around, all mirrors were normal. Not a reflection out of place. No shadows. Just clean, cold glass. But Ethan knew the story wasn't over. He had seen the power of the mirrors, and the pumpkin shadows. They existed wherever reflections existed. He knew if he ever looked into a mirror alone, or let fear grow too strong, it could return. The next day, the family boxed up every mirror in the house. They buried some, covered others, and avoided reflective surfaces entirely. Ethan promised Lily he would never watch animated horror alone again. Yet late at night, when the house was quiet, Ethan would sometimes hear a soft tap. 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 He would wake up and look around. Nothing. But deep down, he knew. Somewhere, in a mirror he couldn't see, the reflection was waiting. For now, the story was finished. But Ethan understood the truth. Reflections don't forget. Shadows don't sleep. And pumpkins never stop watching. The night sky was dark, the wind whispered through the trees, and in every window that caught the faint moonlight, a tiny blue glow flickered for a moment before vanishing. Ethan shivered and whispered to himself, "Be careful what you see in a mirror." He turned over, trying to sleep, but outside, the sound of soft tapping continued. And somewhere in the dark, a carved pumpkin face grinned.